Hello, Just Gem here, and welcome, or indeed welcome back to my channel. I've zoomed you out a little bit today because I don't have any makeup on because it's too hot to put on makeup, and you don't want to see a close-up of the bags under my eyes. And I've chosen today to switch up to 4K as well. This is going to be an absolute delight for you. Tired me in 4K. Tired hot me in 4K. Anyway, enough rambling. I am going to do what I hope will be a relatively quick video on why the Golden palette from Natasha Denona is missing from my channel. It's missing because I don't have it and I don't have any intention of picking it up. That's not to say that I dislike Natasha Denona as a brand. I actually enjoy her formula very much, as demonstrated by the fact I've got these three palettes here, as well as Metropolis, which is a fantastic palette. If she ever re-releases that, grab it. Grab hold of it tight. And I also have some minis. I've got a few of her blush palettes off the top of my head. I know I've got Bloom, and I think I might have the tan palette that she's got. And I have some lipsticks from Natasha Denona. As a brand, I rate Natasha Denona. I enjoy her products. I do like them. Times when I've skipped Natasha Denona palettes, it's because they've either been too monochromatic or they have lacked, in my opinion, depth. And I mean the kind of depth that's going to be more flattering on my skin tone. And if I'm going to be spending Natasha Denona money on a palette, you can be damn sure that I want to be able to enjoy pretty much every single shade within that palette. If up to 30–40% of it is going to be shades that I'm not going to use, it's not a good investment to purchase that palette. With Golden, I would say Golden falls more within that monochromatic downside, but to a certain extent I think it also lacks the depth. I've seen swatches on other people, and to me the browns that are contained within the Golden palette don't go deep enough for my liking. I would prefer it if there were a few deeper browns within that palette to complement the golds that Natasha has put in there. I did once own the original gold palette, and I ended up kind of getting rid of it in favour of the Metropolis palette, because to me this is clearly far more versatile and you're going to get a much wider combination of looks with this palette than you would ever get using the gold palette. I can't really say that my interest was piqued when Natasha said she was going to be releasing the Golden palette, and when I found out how many shades were going to be repeated from the gold palette, which I decluttered a few years back, it didn't make any sense for me whatsoever to pick up Golden. But I wanted to make a point though of saying that, you know, I do like Natasha Denona. I do like her creativity. I like her ability to be innovative. So where Pat McGrath, for example, is giving us the same thing over and over again, I've got to say I appreciate the fact that Natasha is pushing boundaries really, and she is giving us newness. She's giving us freshness, she's giving us interesting colour combinations when she's not giving us things like the Xenon palette, something I've skipped because of how monochromatic it is. But I do like her formula, I do like the variety, I do like that she is giving newness whenever she releases something. For me it tends to miss the mark, as I say, because sometimes even though it's new, sometimes it can be a bit samey, and when it's not samey, sometimes it lacks the depth. So to demonstrate a bit more what I mean about the depth, a bit of a story time. Mel Thompson, back in the day, I still watch her stuff now even though she's no longer with us, and I highly recommend that you check out her stuff too. But Mel Thompson loved the mini retro palette when it was released. The mini retro palette was in this format, and it was essentially a pink and green mini palette, and it was pretty, it was unique. It didn't speak to me as such, but I could see why it was a pretty palette. I could appreciate it. When Natasha Denona announced that she was going to be releasing the retro palette, Mel Thompson was super excited. Like, she could not wait for a £15 retro palette. The thing is, when retro was released, this is what we got. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing any of the green which made mini retro so unique and gave it that oomph, really. Mel didn't see it either, and she was thoroughly disappointed. So what Mel did is she used Sydney Grace singles to create what she thought the retro palette should look like. And this is it. So I picked it up. I'm going to find an image of retro glam, and I'm going to put it beside this palette. The reason being, after Mel passed away, we then got the retro glam palette from Natasha, and that colour story was far more in keeping with the original mini retro. I skipped on retro glam because to me it was very light, basically. I felt a lot of the tones were ashy, and for the kind of looks that I would go for, it wasn't appealing. However, this palette has the depth that I feel Natasha's version is lacking, and that's why I skipped on retro. Well, I skipped on retro glam for two reasons. One, because of the fact that it lacked the depth that I enjoy, and two, because I wanted to support Mel Thompson. I wanted to have this. I wanted to own this bundle. I think it's beautiful that Sydney Grace made this bundle available to people as a way to commemorate Mel. So this is something that I will definitely treasure. And the other thing to say when it comes to depth is Natasha is definitely capable of it, because alongside Metropolis, which is probably up there really when it comes to palettes that I really like, and another one that's up there for palettes that I own is the My Dream palette, and this has the depth that I'm talking about. I can use every single shade in here. There's not a shade that I would be nervous to use or that I would be concerned about how it might appear on my skin tone. That's what I mean when I'm talking about depth. There's just been other palettes as well that maybe I've appreciated and I've liked the look of that I've skipped on. So the Zendo palette, for example, that's a colour story that's right up my street, but a lot of people were comparing it to Urban Decay Born to Run, and I have that. I love that palette. You'd have to pry it out of my cold dead hands. Another palette from Natasha Denona which I like the look of is Circo Loco. That's got bright bold colours that I love, and I've skipped on that because I have a lot of bright bold colours in my collection, and it didn't make sense to part with Natasha Denona money to potentially duplicate or even triplicate shades that I already have. If it ever goes on like a massive sale, there's a chance that I'll pick it up, but for the time being, it's not something that I think I'd want to add. I'm trying to think if there's any other. I mean, I skipped on pastel for. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious reasons from the explanation I've just given why I've skipped on pastel. Same reason I skipped on glam. I just feel like that. While I'm quite partial to a cool tone colour story, a lot of the cool tones in there are also very light, and I just don't think that they would be particularly flattering on me, so I've skipped that. And what else is there? What else? Going through the back catalogue. And I think if I've skipped on anything else, it's just because it's the items that have been in the higher price point. The green-brown palette and the purple-blue palette, I think they're the palettes that got me onto Natasha Denona in the first place. and I have always wanted those two palettes, and maybe one day I will finally go for it and acquire those palettes. But at this point I have so much blue and green and purple and brown that it really wouldn't make sense to buy those palettes. But I don't know, down the line I might treat myself to them. And then things like the Lila, again similar, it's purple. I love purple, but again, is it worth spending the money to have that palette? Potentially not. It's not to say that I don't like Natasha Denona, and that's why the Golden palette is not on my channel. It's not that at all. I like Natasha Denona, I like her formula, I like the variety that she's capable of giving us and the newness and the freshness. It's just sometimes her palettes for me lack a bit of a punch and can be too monochromatic, so bronze, xenon and golden itself. I don't think I'd be able to create enough individual looks using those three palettes to justify the price point, and that's why I've skipped them. That's why I've skipped golden. So just a really quick video today, just to let you know why I've skipped golden and why it's potentially conspicuously missing from my channel. Keep an eye out. I will definitely rate Natasha Denona products in the future, because I'm sure that she will come out with something that I will enjoy again. I mean, if she brings out anything that's, you know, in a similar vein to my dream, I'll snap that up. Golden, for me, it just wasn't it. Wasn't my cup of tea. For me, an easy skip. I hope you found that useful. I mean, I don't know how useful a video like this could potentially be, but at least it's been potentially useful to know why I've skipped golden, and get a bit more of an idea of the kind of palettes that I like. So while I might not have golden, I will definitely be picking up Natasha Denona products down the line and reviewing them, so keep an eye out if Natasha Denona is a brand that you're interested in seeing more of and hearing about. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in a video in the not too distant future. Take care. Bye.